Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, welcome in you the lecture number 6 of chapter number 3. In this chapters, we will study different methods of standard setting. In the previous lecture, I have you taught the methods definition, classification of standard setting methods on the base of test centered and examinee centered. Now I will discuss with you people the method named as the Abell method. This is also a method based on absolute standards or cut scores. Dear student, first of all, I will introduce you people the method of Abell. This is the method which introduced by the Robert Abell. He was a well-known assessment expert. He introduced this standard setting method, which is famous for his name, and he introduced this method in 1972. Robert Ebel was an American educational psychologist who specialized in educational measurement. The Abell method is a standard setting method normally used to determine a cut score for multiple choice question types of test. It means this method of standard setting is like the method of Nadelsky's method of standard setting, in which the educational experts or experts of assessment use the multiple choice items data, and they need only two domains or two types of two dimensions: the context before starting of the test and the test, and the data are test scores required after conducting test. It means that they do not conduct the test for their setting standard method in Nadelsky. The Abell method is also such type of method in which the experts use cut scores for multiple type questions of test. Abell's method currently used mainly in medical and health related context, and perhaps most commonly as a method of setting the passing level on classroom achievement test. Dear students, as you know, like your test of admission, in which only a cut score was used to declare you people pass, and you people declared eligible to get admission in the MPhil program, and the university used a test in which cut score was the major component to decide about the pass or fail students. Only scores, one cut score, that was almost 60% for MPhil admission test. So it is generally applied. So Abell method, in Abell method, it is generally applied to tests comprising multiple choice format items. You know the types of multiple types of items of multiple choice format, in which there is one stem of a question or statement, and after that 4 or 5 options, in which one is 100% correct and others are wrong items in this method. So like Nadelsky method, Abell's method also use the multiple choice format tests for making cut scores or decisions, to declare pass or fail to students. Dear students, now I will discuss the implementation steps of Abell method. I have discussed in detail in my previous lectures about the standard setting methods or steps of standard setting methods in different lectures, and in Abell method, like other methods of standard setting, Nadelsky are generally the standard setting method procedure. The Abell implement or Abell used following steps for making standards or setting standards for the performance of level, for the achievement of participants. So these steps are: the first, these steps are 5 numbers. Briefly, we can say the Abell method, Abell used 5 steps to in this method. Like other methods, like a standard setting procedure, the Abell also select the judges. In first step, the Abell selected the judges. Number 2, define the borderline knowledge, skills and abilities, KSA, which is known as KSA, knowledge, skills and abilities. So these 3 borderlines he used for this method of standard setting. And like other methods, Abell also trained the judges in the use of Abell method. He trained the judges in this method to be included in the method of standard setting. Then they were implemented. They implemented the method of standard setting. And the 4th step is collect judgments. It means the Abell implemented the method on judges and collect their judgments. Or number 5th, combine the judgments to determine a passing score. At the last level, Abell combined all judgments of the judges to determine a pass score. It means a cut score to declare pass. It means if students attain that passing score or cut score or higher that cut score, declare passed, otherwise they will be declared fail. And the procedures for the Abell method. Now I will discuss the procedure of Abell method. Dear students, like other test-based approaches, the method proposed by Abell 1972 requires participants to make judgments about individual test items. So it means in this method, Abell involved judges about individual test items, about decisions about individual test items. However, unlike some other methods, Abell method requires participant to make two judgments for each item. So it means different from Nadelsky method. In this method, the judges have to make two judgments for each item. One judgment being an estimate of the difficulty of each item. So one criteria was the difficulty of each item, and the other judgment criteria was the relevance of the item. So this is more comprehensive. As compared to Nadelsky method. In this method, Abell used two criteria or combined two criteria in this method of standard setting, and the decision will be made on two criteria about each item. One is item difficulty level and the other one is relevance of the item. In the methods based on judgments about test questions, such as the Abell method, the cut score is established through the concept of borderline candidate. It means the borderline of cut score. If the students cross the border of cut score, will be declared passed or successful candidates, and the other category, if they are unable to attain the achievement or cut marks or scores up to the cut score level, they will be declared fail. This borderline candidates is one whose knowledge, skill and abilities are on borderline between being competent or not yet competent. In this category or in this method, the two terms separate from pass fail used. So these terms are competent or not yet competent. The passing score or cut score is based on expected performance of the borderline candidates. Once all questions have been standard setting, Abel, like and Goff, determines a cut-off mark for the exam based on the performance of candidates in relation to a defined standard. It means absolute defined standard rather than how they perform in the relation to their peers relative, or like in norm reference. So reviewers make a judgment on individual items test centered as opposed to exam candidates examinee centered. Dear students, as I told you in the Nadelsky method, in which also the absolute standards were used to make judgments about the performance level of students. In this method, in Abell method, it is also absolute standards are also used to test centers as opposed to exam candidates. Simply you can say that in this method the judgments or decisions are based on the scores, absolute scores of students in test. So it is often used in high stake exams. High stake exams, it means sensitive exams. This method is used in high stake exams, or the exams in which students very responsible items or posts or responsible professions like medical, so in which the doctors have to treat the human beings as patients. So the nature of this test is very sensitive, and it should be on base of standards. Dear students, now I will discuss about the Abell criterias. As I told before, as I discussed before, the Abell used two criterias for in this process of a procedure of standard setting at the same time. The first criteria is the difficulty levels of item. So there are three categories or three levels of items. Number one, easy. Number two, easy difficulty level. Number two, medium difficulty level. Or number three, hard difficulty level. It means in the tests are decided on the base of item difficulty levels of each item, which can be put into three categories: easy, you can say this easy difficulty level if 70% students responds correctly in a test, the item's difficulty level is 30%. And medium, next one is medium level of difficulty. And third one, hard level of difficulty. If 100 out of 100 only 30 students respond correctly in a test, the item difficulty level of tests will be 70%. So expert says that the test should be the medium level of difficulty, which range from 50 to 40 to 60 level, 40 to 60 or 65, 45 to 65 level. It is a medium range of item difficulty level. The second criteria for Abell's method is 4 relevance categories. 4 relevance categories. Dear students, you know the relevance is very important characteristics which are required the reliable and consistent tests. So these 4 relevance categories are: number 1, essential. Each item will be discussed on the base of essential. Number 2, important. The second criteria is each item is important to be included in the test. Number 3, acceptable. Acceptable. It means the item is acceptable to be included in the test. Or number 4, questionable. It means those items which may be most difficult or which may be most irrelevant items to the test are questionable and should be eliminated, excluded from the test. So dear students, these were the 2 criteria on which each item is analyzed and then make decision about that item. So, and that is, I think it is more comprehensive as compared to Nadelsky method. The judgments effectively cross categories all items into one of 12 cells. It means the judges analyze the items in 12 scores. It means item difficulty levels 3 and relevance level 4. So 3 multiply by 4. So it means in this test items are analyzed by putting in these 12 cells. So it is important at this point that participants' judgments about characteristics of difficulty and relevance are not made with respect to hypothetical examinee. Hypothetical mean not real examinee, but with respect to the purpose of the test and the population of examinees. So it means in this test, in this method, the experts not use hypothetical examinees or hypothetical examinees data. Instead, they use the purpose of the test and the population examinees. The real people are included in this test. So item classification for 100 items by a panel of 5 participants yield a total of 500 item judgment. So it means the classifications for 100 items by a panel of 5 participants yield a total of 500 item judgment, and they will decide on the average of these judgments or these decisions. For obtaining a cut score is to gather and summarize item judgments regarding relevance and difficulty. The obtain a cut score using the Abell method, the number of items are judged to be A category. A category A is multiplied by the percentages of those items participants have deemed must be answered correctly, B. It means the experts determine the items, consider the items must be answered correctly, B. So these are two categories. Advantages of using this method. Dear students, now I will discuss the advantages of using Abell method. As you know, in the introduction of this method, I described that this method is used medical and health sciences. Basically, this method is used for medical and sciences because of the sensitivity of nature of the profession. So there are certain advantages of this method. Number one, it is easier for exam reviewers. Standard setters are likely to find it simpler to make a judgment about how difficult or relevant a question item is. The second benefit of this method is it provides an overview of exam difficulty. Once standard setting is completed, it provides a good summary of how all questions have been classified. It means it discussed each item on two criteria. Number one, difficulty level, and the number second, the relevance level. So each item is analyzed on base of these two criteria, and then it is judged. Then it is decided to be included in this standard setting method. And the third advantage is pass marks are determined prior to the exam. It means in this method, the pass marks or cut scores are determined prior to the exam. That means before the conduction of examinations, before the administering of test, the cut scores and keys of correct answers are developed before the conducting of exams, like a standardized multiple choice test items which are being used in different countries or different professions, and GRE, etc. These are all, in these all the pass marks are determined prior the examination. Dear students, this method had definitely have some shortcomings or some disadvantages. So these disadvantages are: number one, relatively time consuming and costly method. This method is as compared to other method is more time consuming and costly because each item has been judged or each analyzed on the base of two criteria instead of one. The next disadvantage is that this method of standard setting requires digital software. It is difficult to decide about each item on the two criteria. So this method requires digital software. The third disadvantage is metrics difficult to get right. Metrics difficult to get right. So it means it is difficult to make its matrix of so many items having two criteria at a time. Number one, difficulty level, and number two, relevance level. Dear students, I have discussed in detail the Abell method of standard setting before you. First of all, I described the concept and steps of using Abell method. Then I have discussed the procedure of standard setting method. Then I have discussed about the advantages of this method comparing with other methods of standard setting like Nadelsky, and lastly the disadvantages of this method. So relatively it is a time consuming and costly method requiring digital softwares, and involving metrics difficult to get right answers or get right procedures. Dear students, now I will check your level of understanding by this activity. You will write the answers of the following questions in the class. I am writing the questions in front of you, or these questions are as under. Dear students, open your notebooks and write the briefly answers of the following questions, which should be totally based on your learning without opening your books. Anyhow, you can discuss with your one class fellow and finalize answer after discussing in 25 minutes. Question number 1. Differentiate the Abell method from Nadelsky method. What is the difference between the Abell and Nadelsky method? Question number 2. What are the steps of implementing Abell method of standard setting? And number 3. Elaborate the merits and demerits of this method. Kindly write down the answers of these questions and submit me. try to ensure the answers of these questions very seriously and professionally. So dear students, this was the second method of standard setting. In which I described about the method in detail. So we will in next class we will discuss the other methods of standard setting. And thanks for your times. Allah Hafiz.